I've been reading in Exodus lately, and yesterday, reading it, Israel is in bondage to Egypt, and it dawned on me. It reminded me of a veal farm I saw when I was up in Ohio, and the calves are kept in these little plastic pens. They're like the good size, probably the bigger dog pens you see in the commercial pet stores. And this is thousands of them just side by side, and this is to keep them from being able to move. It keeps them weak. They don't build any muscle. It keeps them to meat nice and tender. It stunts their growth, psychologically, physically. They don't care about the psychological, but this is what so many have allowed Satan in this world to do to them, and what they've allowed to happen to themselves. Being enslaved in bondage. And I'm not speaking physically. I'm speaking spiritually and psychologically, although the physical may be coming soon. We're allowed, some of us have allowed this to happen to us, some in our entire lives, some of us in different aspects of our lives, and it keeps us from growing. It keeps us in bondage. It stunts our growth. We can't get stronger, and we don't grow. And 2 Peter 2, Peter had been speaking of Balaam, who was a false teacher, prophet. And Peter was warning us and telling us in verse 19, they promised them freedom, but they themselves are slaves of corruption, since people are enslaved to what defeats them. Remember that. What are we allowing to defeat us? Recently I've been shown how we can allow weaknesses to either defeat us or we can use them to glorify God, as Paul did and showed us in 1 Corinthians 2, 1 through 3. Paul says he didn't come with brilliance of speech or wisdom, that he was with them in weakness and fear and trembling. Paul goes on to tell us in later on in Corinthians, well, this is Jesus saying to Paul. Jesus said to Paul, "My grace is sufficient for you. My power is perfected in weakness." And Paul says, "Therefore, I will gladly boast all the more about my weaknesses, my infirmities, so that Christ's power may reside and dwell in me." Boast in my weaknesses. Why would we want to do that? As Paul says, so that Christ's power may reside in us. To give all the praise and glory to the Holy Spirit. That it's not us. That we can do this in our weaknesses. And being able to do this, while dealing with this weakness is, God sees that we don't have to be in a perfect state. We don't have to be this unbelievable being to be able to do these things for Him, that no matter what, we strive, we stand, we try to stand. I've recently been coming to grips also with my weaknesses, and some of them that I've been shown. Sometimes we don't even realize it until somebody actually, points it out to us, and we can either put up a wall and not recognize it, or we can deal with it. One that I've spent my life hiding, and that I haven't told anybody about, well, hardly anybody. I have a lot of trouble reading. I can't read well at all. I can barely read. And I'm not the brightest bulb. But about reading. When I was saved, I'm going to do a video one of these days, my testimony. I was 16. I have to go back and do the math, the years. But I hadn't read a book yet. Couldn't read a book. Barely made it through, barely making it through school. Couldn't pay attention, couldn't concentrate. I couldn't read. It was just impossible. I hated to read because I couldn't. And they didn't know why back, I was just labeled a dumb kid put in the back of the class. But when I was saved, I had a yearning, a hunger for the Word. And I would have to read over and over and over and over the same chapters, the same sentences, to be able to do that. it was in His patience and the hunger that I had for the Word that I was able to do it. It was like I said, maybe like 16 before I read a real book. I mean, a real book. I mean, a book other than the Bible. And I'm saying when I read, from start to finish, and I hadn't come close to doing that with the Bible. But this is just to show you what God's strength and God's power can do. I was always the quiet one, sat in the back of the class, no attention, didn't want any attention to me, because I might be asked something. Anyways, I'm digressing again. It's all due to the Holy Spirit that I can quote any verses at all. Memorizing things, especially if it's a class or something that says, I want you to memorize these by next weekend, forget it. I'll never get to do it. Never be able to do it. It just amazes me, some of the people that I know, some out there that can just, their memory is just amazing in what they know. All due to the Holy Spirit. And He helps me to be able to recall some things. But, and realizing this is because it's helping me, because when I go to apply, the hardest thing for me to do is trying to read something and when I have to, directions or whatever, or applying for work. It takes me so long to fill out a job application, and you can just feel that everybody's looking at you, especially when you go to these places where you have to go into the computer and they have these little computer things set up there in front of the store. But recognizing now I'm trying to deal with it, and not just getting mad, or just being able to, because if you and the anxiety attacks that come from this, where you can't breathe and it feels like there's an elephant sitting on your chest, and I had to get up and I would just walk away. But I'm realizing this now, being able to pray about it and quote scriptures through it, and just going through it while still dealing with all of this, to still being able to do it. I've always boasted that I fear nothing but God. Well, in some of my recent talks, I realized I have fear, and sometimes it turns into a crippling anxiety attack. It's hard to explain. Fear of starting a new job or starting something new, not being able to do it because of my pea brain. Of not being able to read, or afraid I'm going to have to read something in front of somebody and not be able to do it, and having them realize that I can't read very well. All our weaknesses. Why have I shared this? Therefore, I will gladly boast in my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may reside in me. The videos I make, the teachings I've been giving, it's all due and because of the Holy Spirit, God's power. Nothing to do with me. As I've said before, that in the Bible where it says He calls on the unwise to confound and deal with the wise. We're speaking of me. And as Paul said, I did not come with great speech. Not even close. But it's just, again, allowing the Holy Spirit to work through us and being able to deal with things. Dealing with some of our problems and not hiding them, not pushing them down. For when I am weak, then I am strong, Paul says. Remember, we can be in bondage no matter where we are. So what are we going to do about this? What are you going to do about it? Are we going to let our weaknesses defeat us and enslave us? We're getting close. And as we get closer to the end, and as we hear of the wars and rumors of wars, as the hate continues to build and grow, hate all around us, we see it everywhere now, from all sides. We need to come to terms and be able to boast in our weaknesses and our fears, deal with them, so we can truly be strong, we can stay strong and stand strong in these end times, and for each other, most importantly, for the I Am. Because He said, whom shall I send? And I said, here I am, send me. And I wonder sometimes, Why me? Why did he pick me to do all this? God's amazing. Love you all. Agape.